If you're trying to transition to a modern digital age classroom, your students will invariably need to learn how to use various technology tools to accomplish 21st century tasks you want them to do. One way to really support students in learning the application of technology tools is to provide them with video demonstrations and tutorials. Many of these already exist, so you should start by going to Google or other sites like YouTube and doing a search for tutorials about the specific task you're looking for. You don't want to reinvent the wheel and create something if it's already out there. For example, I recently had to look for how to do cloth in Blender. Blender is a 3D modeling and animation program that's free to use, so I downloaded it. I was using it for developing an app, and I needed to know how to make cloth. Now, video tutorials can be a lot more useful than printed tutorials. There's a time and place for both, but especially when you're using new tools or new software technology, knowing where to click on the screen, how to find menus and panels and buttons is a lot easier to do sometimes when you're using a tutorial. So I typed in how to use cloth in Blender and I found about 45,000 tutorials. But sometimes when I'm looking for tutorials, there's nothing out there. So the problem is when you do a search, you don't want to reinvent the wheel, search for what's out there first, but when you can't find a good one, sometimes the solution is to make your own. A good way to do this is by creating a narrated tutorial, just like I'm doing right now, while recording what you're doing on the screen. And another term for this is called screencasting. So right now this is screencasting my screen to you. There's lots of different apps you can use on various platforms to record your screen and your audio narration. And some of them are free, so let's start with those because free is good. If you're working on a Mac, like I'm doing right now, you can use QuickTime Player. So to record a movie in QuickTime Player, you need to be using Mac OS. QuickTime on Windows won't work this way, but they have a feature under File, New Movie Recording. So I'll switch over to QuickTime really quickly, and you can see that up here under the QuickTime Player, there's a File, and then there's New Screen Recording, and that's Command Control N is a shortcut for that. And you'll see a little window pop up, a little window like this, and that has a recording button and a little triangle that lets you choose and select. You can't see it on my screen, but I'll show you really quickly. You can see this little menu that pops up when you click on it. It'll hide my window from you. This is actually right here. It says screen recording and shows that recording window. But my choices are I can choose my microphone input, which you want to make sure you do before you start recording, or you might do a great recording with no audio recorded. And you can set medium or high quality. When I'm recording a whole screen, I like to set high quality to make sure nothing's too pixelated or blurry or difficult to read if I'm clicking on buttons or icons. Now that won't work on Windows, and I usually work on Windows PCs. So the program that I like to use the most recently on Windows is BB Flashback Express by Blueberry Software. And this is a free screen recorder. You can see here that you can upgrade it to a BB Flashback Standard or Pro. So the basic one is free to download and free to use forever. It's a great little introduction to their software, and it does give you more full feature tools than this basic QuickTime Player does. You can save your files in AVI format, which is the standard Windows format, or Flash Player format, which keep in mind Flash videos won't run on Android or iOS devices. So generally you may need a converter to convert your AV files to QuickTime or a different format, but you can also just upload them straight to YouTube, which is a nice way of doing things. And you can see this has built-in uploader tools and a few additional features here. Another option that's kind of similar is Cam Studio for Windows. Now, don't be confused by the name. Cam Studio is at camstudio.org. This is not the same as Camtasia Studio, which I'll go over a little bit later. Camstudio.org is an open source video recorder similar to the BB Flashback one. It records in AVI or SWF streaming flash format. And one extra little feature it has is it has a built-in video annotation feature, so you can add text annotations to your videos. Another one that you may want to look into, and this is very popular, but it's not my favorite, is by a company called TechSmith, and this is a free program called Jing. Now, this one's popular because it can be installed on both Mac and Windows, but it's not my favorite because I find the user interface to be clunky and annoying, and the recording quality isn't that great. It's worse than BB Flashback Express, and you're limited to only 5-minute video recordings. So you can get that at techsmith.com, Jing. You'll see this is what the recording interface looks like, and this sort of stays on your screen and can be moved around, but I find it gets in the way and seems to use up a lot of memory for some reason. So Jing is not my favorite. However, if you want professional level, you plan on doing a lot of screencasting or a lot of these videos, I can recommend their paid program by TechSmith. The same company that makes Jing also makes one called Camtasia, and I've been using this for a while. I'm not using it this time just because I wanted to demonstrate what you can do with the free QuickTime recorder. But Camtasia Studio also works on Mac and Win, and that one offers a lot more functionality and features, including a built-in editor, so you can go ahead and edit what you're making. The Mac version doesn't have quite as many features as the Windows version. Windows version has been out longer, but it lets you do a lot of things like making interactive links that you can click on in your videos. You can record PowerPoint slides directly in there and edit them as soon as you're done. So that's the main thing, is that you get a video recorder and a really basic little editor, as well as annotation tools and clickable links and even tables of contents that you can skip to certain parts of the video. So it's a pretty decent tool if you plan on making a lot of these. But regardless of which tool you plan on using, you really want to make sure there's a few planning steps and tips that you want to follow to make sure that you're good at it. Don't expect to just jump right in and make a great or perfect screencast right off the bat. It takes planning, it takes patience, and it takes some practice. But you can ensure better quality by following some of these steps. Keep it short, no more than 5 to 10 minutes. I find 5 minutes can be a little bit too short for me to get across what I'm trying to do sometimes, but you definitely don't want it longer than 10 minutes. If you have a longer or bigger task, like a 20 or 30 minute thing that needs to be done, break it down into segments or chapters so that your students don't get overwhelmed and they can more easily search through and fast forward and rewind to the part they need. You want to use a microphone headset. If you use just a built-in microphone, for example on a laptop, you might get more background noise and your voice may not be as clear or as consistent as it would be if you were wearing a microphone headset that always stays right in front of your face at the same distance and eliminates the background noise better. Write a script. This is something some people don't think to do. They think it's like a YouTube vlog where you can just go on and start giving your opinion on things. But if you're trying to give clear and concise information, you don't want to have a lot of mistakes or a lot of backtracking or hemming and hawing in your video. So having a script or at least an outline of what you know you want to talk about is really useful. You may even want to practice or rehearse it before recording, but I just go right in and record, and if I make a mistake, I start over again. And that's the next step. Don't be afraid to re-record. If you think you're going to be able to record a perfect screencast on the very first try, then you're either an expert and you've done it a lot of times already, or you're just way more talented than I am, because it takes some mistakes before you get it right. So don't be afraid to stop if you make a big mistake. You don't want your students to make that same mistake or get confused about how to when you start backtracking. So don't be afraid to record more than once, or if you have editing software like that Camtasia Studio Professional software, or you can even use iMovie or Microsoft Movie Maker. Those are free tools. You can use Adobe Premiere or any sort of video editor. That'll let you cut out your mistakes. So if you get to a point where you make a mistake or there's a gap and it's a waste of time, you can just go and cut that piece right out, keep it nice and concise and to the point. So hopefully this gives you enough to jump right in and start making some videos. They're not going to be perfect, but as I said, there's a lot of gaps in the knowledge base of what's available out there, and if we all start making these as necessary, we'll be able to avoid reinventing the wheel and find and use each other's resources for our students, really saving time for all of us in the end. So get out there, make some, and let me know if you've made some really good ones, and I'll start using them myself with my students.